No, this whole thing goes over, and I think we can. There's a lot to look at here because the players involved. Like you have to remember that what's crazy is Doublelift was, I assume, is no longer a TSM streamer, right? And that he's actively using the TSM streaming platform in his partnership in order to uh, basically issue an attack against Reggie and the entire situation. But then you have the CEO and the president. I mean, I don't know if Leena's still the president. Like, I guess there's rumors that she may not be at the company any longer. But who are like getting personally involved and then writing Reddit and Discord messages and like the entire thing.
Can we go there? Because that's another area that there's so much to unpack in. Like, listen,
It's so weird.
there are plenty of unique approaches. Carlos from G2 would be a great example. Dana White from the UFC. There are plenty of unique approaches to being like an executive, but with a front-facing component. But Leena genuinely does these messages on Discord like she was a fan of the team. It's mental. Like, I can't believe these ones that are like, lol, can you believe these two crazy guys, my boyfriend and my ex? It's like, is this a fucking Seinfeld skit? So what are you talking about? You see, it's all public, right? It's all public thing. Like people are just looking at you as the president, going, "Wonder what the president thinks of it." Like, I can't believe my bloody taste in men. Like, what are you talking about? This is madness.
I know, like, literally posting this to a public Discord. I think it's interesting as well. You know, it's been thrown at us like a ton of times, right? Like, oh, esports will never grow up while you guys are doing your funny, amusing podcast. Right? This is the president of a supposedly $400 million valued esports company says, twirling her bangs and going, tee, my taste in men, tee. Like, fuck me, that's absolutely outrageous. It should be ultimately disqualifying. The fact there's no one at the company that can say, well, like, maybe that's not very appropriate to be sort of talking about publicly. But also as well, like, I think about, you know, at a time when we've had like a crucible the last couple of years about, you know, kind of like women being represented in the space. And I just think it's awful. I think it just actually sets women back so much when this is supposedly the example. Like, it, you know, can you, again, just imagine anyone else doing something like this and what it would say about them and how it would be responded to. But hey, you're the president of TSM and it's just the way you do things, right?
Put it this way.
It's a fucking disgrace.
But here's
through a thought exercise for a moment and imagine, in this case, like Richard's saying, because it's such a highly valued company, you'd have to pick one of the best teams of the whole league. You'd have to pick literally like the Dallas Cowboys or something. Imagine the Dallas Cowboys that the president was also a woman. She's breaking all these molds for executives. She's dating one of the star players who then isn't in the team, but then is in the team, but then isn't in the team. And then also doing all this, basically doing that. This would be the equivalent of just doing outrageous tweets about the game. Like, I thought this game was fucking rigged or whatever. Like, what? Like, this would never even occur. Like, that would be the biggest meltdown in sports media ever. People would crucify you if you did that. So what we're saying here, by the way, is, which is it? Do you want to be treated as someone who's just a silly adjunct to the team and not to be taken seriously? Or do you want to be taken seriously as an actual professional? By the way, president is an enormous role. It's not some like fucking spokesperson only. Like, you're supposed to be like involved in day-to-day operations and running the whole structure. So yeah, it's just a bad look, isn't it? Like, I don't think they've even started out for PR personally.
Yeah, by her own admission, remember, she was the one who, in the previous instance, in the start of the Holy War, or whichever Holy War it was, I can't even remember. There's been so many of them at this point, right? You know, she was the one who said, like, actually, people have to pay me more respect. I'm the one that's dealing with the players' contracts. I'm the one that's, like, going out and trying to recruit players. I'm the one that's having talks with these players. And, of course, leaking this on a Discord, like, you know, also so stupid, she's leaking contradictory shit to then her public official stance and thinking, oh, I'll just go back and have a sneaky delete on those. Like, so anyway, you know, you can't have your cake and eat it. Do you want to be a serious professional who has all this power and all this influence in the team? Because if you are, guess what? There's a responsibility there, and with that responsibility will come judgment. Or do you want to be the kind of like, hey, I'm one of you and president's just the title and it's okay to date the players because I don't really have the influence. Please just like me. You can be that too, but I'll never take you seriously and talk about you as if you're a meaningful professional in my business. No way.
It's also that I'm just confused as to whether she continues to work in this capacity at TSM or not. Because by all rights, by the way, she has done very well in terms of you know, getting big name streamers onto the TSM platform. Like, she's been very successful at that. But if you look at what she does, like, the problem here is that if she is still the president of TSM, then why isn't she on board with a corporate PR strategy? Because I'll tell you right now, Reggie didn't write that Reddit post. That's
Reggie,
not that. Trust me.
Reggie never writes. As soon as you see, like, it's got good syntax, and look at this, it's very intricate and well put together, and consider it. Like, no, it's not him, obviously.
So like, there was clearly, my point is that there was clearly a PR strategy here, and as the president of the company, why aren't you on board with that PR strategy? Number one, because you're writing your own stuff from your own account on Discord, which clearly is contradictory or kind of makes the org look incompetent, because basically by saying that there are two like giant egos colliding, like that's not a good look for TSM as a brand, to characterize the CEO in that way. Or alternatively, let's say she has quietly stepped away from TSM. Why are you in the Discord writing this? What is the purpose of doing this? You know what I mean? Like,
well, I think honestly, she looks at the fan base. Like, look, you have to understand. I think Leena could be like a successful influencer, right? Like, don't get me wrong on that front. And I think, yeah, it's good to acknowledge her strengths, few that they are within the context of our business. But yes, in the world of influencing, I'm sure she absolutely could go and be very successful. And definitely some of the people who've been signed to the TSM brand, she probably played a major part in, all well and good. But, I think she sees the fan base as almost by extension her own. And I think that's why she feels utterly compelled to constantly check in with them, constantly correct the record, Hillary, about all the things that is being said about her in public. Like, no, don't listen to nasty Thorin. Don't listen to the nasty guys. They're probably sexist or something. I'm totally doing all this cool stuff. Now, watch me fuck the help and pretend this isn't a conflict of interest. Like, it's ridiculous, So I think she's shown a real degree of selfishness. And if the TSM fans had any self-respect, which, let's be real, it's been how long and they still haven't got a better chant than TSM, so they don't have a lot of self-respect. But if they did, they would demand better of someone who's the president of the company. They would be the ones pushing for her to get the fuck out.
I think moving on to like a lot of the stuff, because like what this morphed into, which was surprising, is like I was shocked that we took like this hard turn into like Reggie's behavior towards players and staff, because
it only matters if Doublelift says it though. Apparently everyone else in the world can be like, please, he beat me to an inch of my, and then they go, did he though? That was years ago. And then Doublelift goes, he once told me I'm shit. What? This squill nuts. Like, why is Doublelift the fucking lever on which this all hinges, mate? What's this?
So, but what's weird about this whole thing is like it started out as like Doublelift talking about this contract situation. By the way, guys, if you know anything about Doublelift, he's actually incapable of lying, right? He will misremember things. Like, I don't think he's super clear all the time on the timeline of an event or what happened, but he has leaked every roster move he's been a part of. He has the worst poker face of any human being I have ever seen. Like, he gives it away instantaneously from his expression, okay? So, like, I don't think he is like lying about any of this. I actually think, like I said, he's incapable of telling falsehoods. Also,
all you need to know is he doesn't even remember his own life. Like, here, Leena like prompted him, like, and then you remember that after that. Oh yeah, and then another after that, I said to Reginald, like, it's your own life, bro. What you talking about like last year? Not like you actually are an 85-year-old man. Like, like, why is she prompting you like off cue? Like, next line starts, Reginald, I hate you. Like, what is this? She's the stage director now as well. It's just mental.
So what's so fascinating to me is that this took an immediate turn from this is the reason why I don't want to be on TSM and here's what happened a year ago into I am telling the truth about Reginald and his behavior towards his players and employees at TSM, which I didn't see it going this way, honestly. And we've seen a bunch of this stuff captured on video over the years. People like to dismiss it because they say it happened years ago or because people tweet about it. But at the other end of this, there are very real dangers that Doublelift did talk about trying to discuss this because TSM is a big brand within the esports space and has a lot of pull and a lot of weight. So going against the TSM narrative or trying to expose this stuff does come with dangers for people, especially people who might want to continue playing someday, and that option is with TSM. People don't want to burn bridges. So I don't think there's anything been done that's like super nefarious from the angle of TSM. Like, I think it's mostly just like aggressive verbal conversations. But I'd like to hear your guys' take on this, because I was surprised it even went in this direction, honestly. Like, I didn't see this one coming.
Yeah, I mean, like, honestly, I gotta say as well, like, there's a lot of, I think, still leftover tension because of the, the elephant in the room. Like, it does feel to me that, like, why is it got to be Doublelift? Why is there some weird fucked up, like, Doublelift and Reginald conflict? It just so happens to be those two guys, and it just so happens to be Leena, the president of the company, who, by the way, the comments she's made publicly couldn't prove more the problems of conflict of interest, because she is literally saying, I am loyal to both my partner and the company I work for, so I will not be taking a side. Well, in this instance, your loyalty has to be to TSM. Yes. You're the president of the company. It's not even up for debate. You're supposed to say how disappointing it is. Are you disappointed in whatever you're going to say publicly? You are the president of TSM. So, I mean, this whole thing is absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, I do think that, to me, it's no coincidence. There was obviously some residual bad feelings there. I mean, to Reginald's credit, it can't be particularly great to sort of have to wake up to, every day to that realization that, your ex is at the company and your what was essentially one of your star players, they're in a relationship. Maybe I could credit him with a degree of professionalism that it didn't spill over until now. But I mean, I just don't think it's a coincidence that it's these two beefing, and I also don't think it's a coincidence that Doublelift is going this hard in the paint, because Reginald is a cunt and a provable one. And by the way, you've dredged up that Dyrus clip again. What did we all tell you about that Dyrus clip at the time? That it was proof that Reginald was a psycho and treated his players awfully. What did you all say? No, actually, when you think about it, Dyrus should have just diffused it. That's what you all said at the time, but now it's evidence. Now it's Exhibit A, is it? Okay. But yeah, I think Doublelift's going a bit too hard in the paint. I don't think the word abusers should get thrown around lightly, especially given all the problems we've had in esports, and in particular in League of Legends. I don't think that describes Reginald, personally.
But this way, I don't think, as far as I can tell, he's done anything illegally. He's just an asshole, isn't he? And certain people obviously can't take it. And I would just say that's the issue for me. Is, put it this way, this is one of the reasons why I came out and was instrumental in this whole thing with Jat and Team Liquid. It's because it wasn't just that, like, he's just going, well, you didn't really play like that as well as you could. I heard he was just berating people and they were basically like mentally breaking down. And he just essentially was semi-aware of this and didn't care. That was just his approach he was going to take. And so I'm not really a big fan of people just destroying the mental of a bunch of young guys who happen to be good at video games. Like Richard said earlier, the problem here is this. There's a world in which, if you made this an abstract discussion, I'm pretty sure me and Richard are actually on the side of, like, we want it to be like real sports and have like a proper locker room where, you know what, you can have some legendary coach who maybe goes fucking Firebrand style and he really gives it to you when he's, but the point is, you'd be a 28-year-old man in that dressing room. You wouldn't be like 5 18-year-olds, some of you from like Nordic countries who've never fucking been to America before, and you're just sat there like, what the fuck is this? How it's going to be? You know, that's not the appropriate
it's also that these 18-year-olds have they haven't spent their entire lives since when they were 8 years old in a team-based coached environment. These are people coming straight in from playing a team game, but mostly probably playing it in solo queue, and certainly not having the structure of youth leagues or anything like that, which I really hope is one of the transformations that we see in the next decade in terms of esports. Is that I think it's one of the most important things is to provide those like youth experiences and grassroots leagues and make sure that people get the maturity in order to do that. But you also have to have you have to have a reputation and the respect of your players as a coach before you can take that approach, like, period. There's
also a broader question about whether or not the owner is the one that should be doing it. Because, like, think about the relationship you have with a coach on a daily basis. You've done coaching, I've done sports coaching. and esports coaching, and the relationship you have with your players on a daily basis should be a very different one to the one the owner has with you. You know, for example, I don't think it's abnormal to suggest, and I've definitely been in this situation, you know, in esports, I've coached a player that's on the spectrum and obviously therefore has a particular set of needs that do make him high maintenance. And we would go to events, and a big part of my job was building a team around that player that could all be self-reliant to a certain degree, a little bit more mature, because so much of my time was going to go into this guy. But, you know, and this dude would ring me up at 4 a.m. like, you know, hey, Richard, I want to change, you know, I'm thinking about changing my resolution. What do you think? And I'm like, okay, it's a 4 a.m. conversation about changing screen resolution for me. But I would never kick that up to the owner. I don't want the owner to think this player's a liability. It's my job to fucking deal with that shit. I'm meant to be the barrier. I'm meant to be the buffer. So I think if a coach does then lose their temper or gives something to you straight, you know, you've earned that right. Because you're in the trenches with the players. The owner bursting into a room like that fucking meme with the belt coming off. It's Reggie time. That's not what should be going on at all. That's not how a professional sports organization would function. And I think owners should fucking check themselves. It's one of the things I hate about esports. I've seen fucking owners, you know, like living with the players and stuff like that. It's fucking weird, dude. Create some professional separation for real.
I think it's also even weirder because obviously there are bad sports owners that get way too involved with the teams, and typically those teams don't do very well. You have to say, like, owners that micromanage definitely don't win as much as those who create a more stable structure. I would say that's a pretty fair assessment of sports. But at the same time, like, you have to remember the TSM isn't just an esports org. It's a streamer org. It's a website network. It's an advertising engine. It's a software company now, right? So it's not like a professional sports owner who literally is just running like an NFL or NBA team. Most of them just do that with their lives. Either they're retired from their previous endeavor where they made billions of dollars, or it's a family artifact that is inherited. And so they're just focusing on this one thing. Right? Or maybe you own a bunch of different sports teams if you're Stan Kroenke or something like that, right? But for the most part, you're focused on sports business. Reggie is focused on like 6 different businesses, one of which, and probably I would say, if I had to guess, the least profitable of which is the esports wing of TSM. And so, like, how he can possibly handle all of that and be enough of an expert in the game of League of Legends is baffling. Like, that is impossible. It is impossible to do that.
Also, let's go the other way on this one, right? How is every single coach ever hired to TSM just incompetent and incapable of communicating, understanding? By the way, there's motherfuckers that have won championships elsewhere that got brought into this team. There's people who are like legendary players who got brought in this. Like, the only coaches, as far as I know, Monty, who have ever won a championship in TSM is Loco Doko and Path. And Path was never ever supposed to be the coach. He always just took over when they fired the other guys. Like, at what point does Reginald ever just sit down and realize that the fucking like Principal Skinner meme is him? He's the one who's out of touch and doesn't know what a coach does, because it doesn't matter who he brings in, it never works out. Like, it can't be like 5 guys in a row just don't work. Like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, you're one of the most successful NA orgs ever. How come you don't have a coach who has like a 3-year tenure or a couple of years there, or who's winning coach of the split? Like, this just doesn't happen. It's fucking mental. Like, somehow that's never addressed by TSM or to all their fans. They just keep doing that thing of like, oh well, Reggie came in and now we have to have Path again. Well, hope we do well at Worlds. It's like, there's one angle if you're a fan. If you're not an idiot, by the way, how about that angle? Why do we always go to Worlds without a real coach? That'd be a great angle to ask a question of the org from, right? That's like every other team, remember, with the exception of like Team Liquid this year, for their own circumstances. Everyone else goes to Worlds with the coach that's coached you all year long, and now do you for 2 splits, maybe an MSI or Rift Rivals. Like, you've gotten everything out of your system. Like, if I was a TSM fan, I would expect more from the org. Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.